I didn't realize the exact moment my marriage ended. It wasn't when he forgot our anniversary. It wasn't when he started coming home late. It wasn't even when he stopped asking how my day was. It was the night he looked at me, calmly, casually, and said, "You're useless. You don't even contribute anything." He said it like it was a fact, like he was commenting on the weather. I didn't argue. I just stood there in the kitchen, hands still wet from washing dishes, staring at the man I had supported for 8 years. 8 years. When we got married, Daniel was an entry-level employee at a mid-sized tech company. Ambitious, restless, full of ideas but short on discipline. I believed in him. I really did. I worked full-time in finance back then. Stable income. Good savings. I paid most of our early rent. Covered groceries. Helped him through 2 certifications. Even funded the online courses he said would change everything. When he wanted to quit his first job because his boss didn't appreciate him, I told him to be patient. When he wanted to switch departments, I helped him rewrite his resume. When he doubted himself, I reminded him of his potential. And slowly, his career began to grow. Promotions, bonuses, bigger office. And with every step up, his respect for me stepped down. First, it was small comments. "You wouldn't understand how corporate strategy works. You're too emotional to think like leadership. You don't really bring in real money like I do now." I let it slide. I told myself he was stressed. That success sometimes changes tone, not heart. I was wrong. By year 7 of our marriage, Daniel had become senior operations director at his company. He wore tailored suits, spoke at conferences, posted motivational quotes on LinkedIn. At home, he barely looked at me. I had shifted to consulting work by then. Flexible hours, good income, smart investments, quiet growth. He never asked how much I made. He assumed it was less. That night in the kitchen, after calling me useless, he added something else. "If I'm being honest, you're lucky I've carried this family financially." Carried. I almost laughed. Because while he was busy building a title, I was building assets. What he didn't know was this. My consulting contracts weren't small. My investments weren't random. And the startup I had quietly bought equity in 3 years ago? It had just been acquired. For a number that made Daniel's annual bonus look like pocket change. But I didn't tell him. Not yet. Instead, I said something simple. "If I'm so useless, maybe you won't miss me." He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." Maybe I was. Or maybe I was finally awake. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention. Not to him. To his company. The firm he worshipped. The place he bragged about. The building he treated like a temple. Through my finance background and network, I began researching its ownership structure. It wasn't publicly flashy. Mid-sized. Profitable. But vulnerable. Heavy debt exposure. Operational inefficiencies. Overvalued vendor contracts. And one major thing. The majority shareholder was looking to exit quietly. Daniel had no idea. He was too focused on impressing upper management to notice the cracks above him. I reached out through an intermediary. Not as a wife. Not as Daniel's spouse. As an investor. Negotiations took months. Silent months. At home, Daniel's comments became sharper. "You wouldn't survive 1 week in my world. You don't understand power. You should be grateful." Grateful. The irony was almost poetic. The day the acquisition papers were finalized, I didn't celebrate. I scheduled a board meeting. The following Monday, Daniel walked into work like any other day. Confident. Important. Untouchable. At 10 a.m., all senior leadership was called into the main conference room. He texted me at 10:12. "Big ownership announcement today. Probably new investors." I didn't reply. At 10:25, I walked into the building. Not through the side entrance spouses use. Through the executive lobby. The security guard looked confused at first, then immediately respectful when he saw the authorization email. Inside the boardroom, Daniel was mid-sentence when the door opened. He turned, and for the first time in months he looked unsure. The chairman stood up. "I'd like to introduce the new majority owner of the company." Silence. Then he said my name. Daniel actually laughed. First. Like it was a joke. until the documents were placed on the table, until the legal confirmations were shown, until the room shifted. I wasn't there as his wife. I was there as his boss. His face didn't turn red. It turned pale. The same man who told me I wouldn't survive in his world was now sitting in a company I owned. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't mention the kitchen. I didn't mention the word useless. I simply began discussing operational restructuring, vendor renegotiations, debt consolidation, executive performance reviews. Professional, calm, precise. When the meeting ended, he stayed behind. "Is this some kind of revenge?" he asked quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. "No," I said. "This is business." He shook his head. "You did this to prove something." I almost felt sad. I did this because I could. There's a difference. Over the next quarter, I evaluated leadership roles. Objectively, performance metrics don't lie. And Daniel's department? Underperforming. Not disastrously, but enough. I offered him 2 options. Stay under revised structure with performance oversight, or accept a generous exit package. For the first time in his career, he wasn't in control. He chose the exit, not because I forced him, but because pride is heavier than paperwork. The day he packed his office, I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. At home, the silence between us became permanent. We finalized the divorce quietly. No screaming, no scandal, just signatures. Months later, someone asked me if buying the company was about revenge. It wasn't. Revenge is emotional. This was strategic. When he called me useless, he revealed something important. He had measured my value only by what he could see. He saw his salary, his title, his office. He didn't see my equity, my investments, my patience, or my capacity. Power isn't loud. It's quiet. It builds in the background. And when the moment comes, it doesn't argue. It acts. I didn't buy his company to destroy him. I bought it because I recognized opportunity. And because no one, not even my husband, gets to define my worth. The night he called me useless, he thought he was standing above me. He had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. And sometimes, the best response isn't proving someone wrong. It's owning the room they thought you didn't belong in.